This is the Great Alaska Hunting Podcast. I'm Dalton Gray.
And I'm Moriah Humphries.
Broadcasting from our hometown of Fairbanks, Alaska. This show is brought to you by Stealthy Hunter. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Great Alaska Hunting Podcast, everybody. I'm Dalton.
I'm Mo.
Thanks for joining us in this episode.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
It's
Nice to be back in the old studio.
Yeah, it is.
Springtime's coming up real quick.
Yeah, it is. It's like warm during the day and cold at night. And I went to work the other day. Had to start outside right away in the morning. It was 5 degrees below zero. But hey, by like 2, it was 20 degrees. Warm.
Nice.
Downright balmy.
Balmy. That's a good word for you.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Suits you.
Good.
Speaking of, I have no segue there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That'll power this episode right there.
Yeah.
Brought to you by nobody, but
Powered by Red Bull, sponsored by No Drink Company.
That's right. But if Red Bull's open to it,
Yeah, well, this would be their opportunity to
jump in. Yeah.
dip their toes into the hunting podcast world.
Featuring the monk fruit extract version.
It's pretty tasty.
I think it's the best one they've made yet.
Yeah, I'll give that to you. I do like it. I don't drink a lot of energy drinks anymore. I used to.
No, I don't either. It's pretty much all I drink when I drink it.
I've probably only had 5 or 6.
In the last week?
No, over the course of the last month, and before that, I'd gone over a year without them.
That's right. You did go almost a year. No, I kind of go through spurts where I'll get up to about 1 a day, and then I start to slow down, and I'll cut them out, and I hardly have any for several weeks, and then I slowly have a few, and yeah.
So, are you going to start talking about how close bear baiting is, like everybody else is right now?
Well, it's not that close.
I know.
I got a lot of stuff to do before that happens. I don't want it to be here yet. I want to do it, but I don't want it to be here yet. I don't have time.
Everybody complains about how March is their least favorite month, and
it's my favorite.
There's not enough snow to do anything, but it's not warm enough to go bear hunting yet. I mean, it gives you some time to get ready, is how I look at it.
Yeah, well, it's the letting you know springtime's coming.
Yep.
And I don't know. I like it a lot because hey, I got to work outside in the sun some.
Yep.
There's just something more exhilarating about that than working inside an old building all day.
Yeah.
Whether it's in a crawl space or an attic or whatever nasty place you're sticking your head. And I don't know. I like it.
I've been in a few of those places.
Yeah.
Lately.
Yeah, you have that kind of job, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was working in a house not too long ago, and it was built in the 40s.
Wow.
Yeah. It was...
Flat roof?
Which one? It
Which
was
roof?
Multiple roof lines.
Well, that's
pretty... Looked like kind of a piece together type deal. Yeah.
I mean, I've worked on a lot of those older houses. I don't know if I've worked anything that was 40s.
No, zero sheetrock in the whole place.
Was it all paneling?
Yeah, it was all some kind of paneling.
So no, what's that stuff they used to use? That plaster. They used to put the mesh on the walls and then coat it. That was like the precursor to drywall.
I don't know.
A lot of that stuff gets torn out over time.
Yeah, I don't think that was in there. It was all paneling of some sort.
I have worked on a house that had that in it.
Which was somewhat less of a mess because not cutting as much sheetrock, but somewhat more of a mess because all the sawdust from that old of wood paneling when you drill holes through it.
Probably has asbestos in it.
Probably does.
It was the wonder product of the 40s and 50s, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's still the wonder product of today. I wonder how sick I'm going to get after being in this house.
Workers' comp, right?
Yeah, but the crawl space was all. I'll give it this: the crawl space was pretty tall.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was about 5.5 foot.
Okay, nice.
So I didn't have to hunch over too much in there.
Was it poured concrete?
I don't think I saw any concrete in that crawl space.
Was it all weather?
Mm-mm.
Well, what was it?
Not really a rim joist. It was just all vertical railroad ties with blocking holding up the floor.
So what was the walls made out of?
In the crawl space?
Yeah.
Something was just set on top of something for the perimeter.
You don't know, or you're not saying.
Pretty much.
Okay.
It was a beauty, Clark.
All right.
It was a beauty.
All right. Hey, whatever it takes.
But I had headroom in there, so
nice.
I wasn't going to complain too much. I was able to even set up a table to set all my stuff on, so I didn't have to have it in the dirt in that crawl space.
Do you have any of those those benches that are like 16 inches high or whatever?
No, but I have some of the mini white folding tables with the adjustable height legs, so you can set those to be like 2 feet off the floor. Yeah. We've done that in crawl spaces.
You don't have any of those benches, like painter's benches that are like 16 inches high? They're perfect for sitting on, putting tools on, or standing on.
Yeah. I got two of those.
All right. I like those in crawl spaces because I could sit on and keep my tools next to me. And it doesn't.
Those are handy, but they're only about that wide.
Yeah.
And pipe tends to just roll off of those things.
Oh, yeah. I guess yeah.
So doing air duct pipe is
pipe fitter here. He fits together HVAC pipe.
Fits, cuts, crimps, screws together, puts...
Yeah. I did some HVAC this week.
Puts a flexible aluminum adhesively backed material.
No, I did HVAC last week. Yeah, I believe it was last week.
You didn't even catch my slick
I didn't. I was thinking about when I did the HVAC. It looks really good, too. I use spiral pipe.
I did a job last week that had spiral pipe.
It's all exposed on finished drywall.
The problem with this spiral pipe that I worked on at a different place was that it was all covered in pipe wrap, so it wasn't even pretty.
Yeah, no, we buy the spiral pipe when we want it to look nice.
It's tough stuff.
It's also not expensive.
Really?
No. And so you don't have to pop it together. It's super strong, and so as long as you can get your run of however much you need in without having to cut it down a bunch, then it's worth it for us. Well, for one too is like labor, and it looks really good. Yeah, and it has a much longer span than the snap together garbage. That's the way I feel about it now. Now that I've used spiral pipe more,
I prefer what I prefer because I've been using it for over 6 years now. I'm kind of used to it.
Yeah.
But enough about the trades, because those that do know what we're talking about are listening, but
making fun of us.
Yeah, but the ones that aren't, I have probably already switched channels.
Are probably zoned out. Like, what in the world? Get to it already. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this week's discussion is again prompted by a few listener questions. I've gotten a number of listener feedback questions and gear things and hunt questions and things like that. But there's been a couple of questions lately concerning clothing, apparel, gear, whatever you want to categorize that as, relating to Puffy gear.
Oh, okay.
Specifically, you're talking about Puffy pants. And so, we kind of had a back and forth about it, and what I've used, what this other guy has or hasn't used, and what we've seen used in the field. And one of the guys is a packer who's coming back up here for his, I think, third year, he said.
Oh, good for him.
But he's going to be all the way from Kodiak to the Brooks, and then out west, I think, doing some other work. And so, all the way from spring bear to the end of moose season, basically. And so he was looking at Puffy pants, kind of a, multi-season use type of Puffy pant. So we went over a few options, and then I got another message from someone else that was saying, you guys haven't talked about apparel too much, and I'm curious what you guys use. So that's what we're going to talk about this week, here and there, and we'll probably get off on a few stories as we go along the way. But before we do that, we'll thank our partners for the show, Stealthy Hunter, Ryan Lampers, our good friend down there in Montana, for supporting the show. I actually got my my new knife, the Stealthy Collab knife. I think it's Mike Jones in Canada.
I didn't know anything about this.
Really?
No.
Well, we'll put a picture of it up here on the screen. I'll show you here in real time.
You didn't tell me about this.
Didn't I?
No.
I pre-ordered it quite a while ago, actually.
Or maybe you did, and it just went in 1 year.
It's a tiny little knife.
Oh, I saw it sitting on your thing somewhere in here.
That's it, next to the Skeletool.
Yeah.
So we'll put these pictures up on the screen for the video audience on Spotify or YouTube.
Well, where's the knife? Can't we just show it to him?
I just put it in one of those totes.
Oh,
just
of course
a minute ago.
I thought you had him out to put him on the show because we were going to talk about gear.
I was actually clearing off space on my other desk.
Oh, that you sit at a lot and do a lot of stuff, I can tell. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You probably sit at your table for paperwork, don't you?
Probably.
Yeah.
Mostly. Right. Anyway, so Stealthy Hunter, not to get off on that side tangent, and then also Hammer Bullets and
Initial ascent
packs.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, gear, Puffy gear.
You know what I thought about Puffy gear for the longest time? I thought Puffy gear was overrated. Like, especially down Puffy gear was overrated, too expensive, and pointless.
I thought you were going to say it was gay.
Well, in other words.
Because you used to say that.
Did I? Did I say that? I could see that. Yeah.
Say that.
All right.
Yeah. Especially when I started buying a few pieces here and there a long time ago.
Yeah.
That coat's stupid. It's so loud and doesn't even look that warm and doesn't weigh anything. It just looks fragile. And this is warmer. And that was back when we were both wearing
this is warmer? What was I saying? Did I say something? I probably did. I say that.
Well,
yeah. I remember you getting your Puffy, and I went down to Sportsman's and bought like a Columbia jacket that was $50. That had like the Sherpa on the inside with a little bit of Primaloft. I think I had real Primaloft in it.
Okay.
So it was like a Sherpa Puffy thing. That was fairly warm.
Oh yeah.
I went and bought that and said, "This is all you need. It's only $50."
Yeah. Well, I mean, both of us said a lot of things.
Not a real good compressibility factor on that jacket, and
yeah. Anyway,
I no longer have that jacket.
Don't you?
That incident I was talking about before the show that we were discussing.
Remind me.
The how to put this involved that involved that friend we were talking about. That incident.
Still not picking it up. No.
Well, I'll have to explain it later. Everybody's just going to have to be in suspense because it's not really something I want to share publicly.
Yet another...
Not really for my sake. It's more for others involved.
Yeah. Yet another story with no ending.
Do we do that a lot?
Yeah, well, here and there.
Anyway,
Puffy gear.
Puffy gear, yeah.
Now we're to the point where we've tried a lot of different stuff. And
yeah.
Had our fill of some products, no pun intended.
I see what you did there. Yeah.
Phil, yeah. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And between synthetics and then different shell fabrics and different brands and different applications, different seasons. And I don't know about you, but it seems like the longer we've been doing this, and I say doing this like since we've been teenagers hunting together, the less variety of stuff we actually go out and buy these days. Because as you find your stuff, you like what you like, you don't like what you don't like, and you quit experimenting at some point.
Well, what I do and what I advise people to do when they're asked, because, especially with the podcast, people ask you questions all the time. Hey, what do you, especially friends or whatever, what do you think I should do for this? And you might think, well, you've been hunting for 30 years. Why don't you just figure it out? It might be what I think, but maybe, maybe they've never used a modern piece of gear, and so they're asking me about it. And what I always advise is, because the biggest number one thing, and it was for me for a long time too, is price for people. They look at it and say, how can that be worth, right? I mentioned that $50 jacket. How can this jacket be worth $400 or $300?
Right.
Right. And what I advise people do is either find a median brand like Killick or something, or buy it, do your research and buy it one piece at a time.
Yep.
Until you build your kit. And that gives you a lot, because then instead of going to Stone Glacier and buying all Stone Glacier stuff, which would do you well, it would do you fine. But, there's a lot better products. Some stuff Stone makes, they do really, really good. And there's other stuff that other companies do better.
I think that's true of every apparel company. And that's why I'm always hesitant to take anybody's advice about a clothing brand when they are sponsored,
or they only wear because they just love it.
Right. Yeah. Sponsored, or they only wear that brand. And so you can't really accept that as the truth if they haven't tried other stuff. And that's where my gear selection, there's no semblance of unity from brands at all.
Yeah, mine either.
Even though I could piece stuff together and wear all the same suit, I suppose.
For a lot of your stuff you could.
I don't want to because I think different companies make things better than others. So the questions that kind of brought this on were about pants in general, and I have not admittedly used a whole lot of puffy pants. I've had 2 pairs.
Okay.
And I got rid of one of them because I didn't think they were very good. And even the pair that I do have right now, I don't wear them that often. And that's something that we can talk about here too, is how often do you actually use puffy pants? And when is that going to be? And then also, insulation is a lot like footwear, in my opinion. You're going to find what works for you, and body type goes into that. Hunt style goes into that as well.
Yep.
I don't think that there is any singular gear list that'll get you in Alaska anyway, from the beginning of May all the way through October.
There's not an optimal that will get you optimally through that. There's sure you could say only this gear and that's all I'm going to use, and you could make it work.
You could.
Plenty of people do.
Yeah. But if you're looking for a specific use, then you need to single out what that is going to be best fitted for.
Right.
And so I guess we'll just start off. A number of years ago, the first puffy pants that I bought was the KUIU Super Down Pros.
Okay.
And at the time, I bought the jacket as well. I was doing a little bit more sheep hunting at the time, or starting to get into more sheep hunting at the time. And I decided that I wanted to buy the KUIU down set. I bought the jacket without a hood because I'm not a big hood fan.
I need a couple are nice. When the 5 jackets you're wearing all have them, it gets to be a bit of a pain.
Yeah, and to me, even 3 jackets, like a mid layer, a puffy jacket, and a rain jacket, that gets to be too many.
That's what I mean. Yeah, the 5 jackets wasn't an exaggeration,
right?
But
But point being is, that's really irrelevant there.
Yeah.
But I bought those puffy pants, the KUIU Super Down Pros. Obviously, they're down, and for those that aren't familiar, there is treated down and there is untreated down. And there's all kinds of marketing pitches, if you will, that may or may not make a difference in the end on the moisture resistance levels that down has or doesn't have between treated and non-treated. And there is an opinion out there. I don't really know that I can speak to it because I haven't owned down pieces long enough to have this happen to them. But over time, the theory is amongst some people that treated down eventually will lose its loft all on its own. After several wash cycles, after wearing it a lot in the field, it gets wet, then it dries, even if it doesn't get as saturated in the process. And then that coating just contributes to the degradation of the down feathers in that jacket or pair of pants for that matter.
Right.
And so over time, it tends to lose its loft faster than untreated natural down does. And so there are companies that advertise from both perspectives. Stone Glacier, treated down. KUIU, treated down. Sitka's new, I think it's the Hyper Down, is their latest rendition of down products.
They came up with a sleeping bag in that.
Yep, new jacket, new
do they
pants.
have jacket and stuff now?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and so that stuff is supposedly an even newer way to treat down, better than what was available before, at least according to Sitka's program. And then you have companies that make down gear that is untreated, and they tout that as being better than treated down for the reasons that I stated earlier. And those companies would be something like Western Mountaineering, advertises as natural untreated down. And I've got a Western Mountaineering sleeping bag that is probably at least 10 years old at this point because I bought it used from a friend of mine. And he had used it sheep hunting for years before I even got it. And then I've had it for a number of years now. You've borrowed it before and used it on hunts, and it's as lofty as the new ones hanging in the store are.
Till it gets wet.
Well, but that's true with any down.
Yeah.
So point being is longevity is a concern there. So kind of, I guess I don't really have any solid footing to say that treated down is better than untreated down because, to be honest with you, I don't really trust down all that much. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But back to the KUIU pants, they are treated down. I kind of went off on a tangent there about what different kind of downs there are. Or downs. Anyway. So the KUIU down pants.
Yeah.
And the jacket for that matter. I felt that they were not as wind resistant as they should have been.
Okay.
There were some things about those garments that I thought were good.
So I've never I've never had down products.
Mm-hmm.
I've used some, but I've never owned any. When you say wind resistance, what level of wind resistance are you kind of expecting that product to have? Because it's not really something that I would even from not using them. Like I say, well, what kind of wind resistance? Because usually you're going to throw something on over top of it anyway, right?
Yep. So wind resistance is what made it noticeable to me when I first used it in the field.
Mm-hmm.
What came after that, the more I used it throughout that 2-month process, was the fact that I noticed cold spots in the jacket and the pants. And that has to do with the fact that KUIU uses box baffles with stitching around the edge of each box to separate. And the idea there is, obviously with a down product, you have to have some kind of a baffle system to keep the down distributed. Otherwise, if you just had a bunch of feathers in an open panel jacket,
it'd be a pillow.
Everything would just go to the bottom, right? Yeah. So you have to have some kind of containment barrier within the jacket. But I noticed that the KUIU stuff just seemed to have cold spots, and then especially with any kind of breeze. And I'm not talking about like 20 mile an hour plus winds, where you would want to put rain gear over that anyway.
Okay.
But just sitting outside and any light breeze just seemed to just go through that. And at least that was my impression. Other people love the KUIU Super Down Pro set. And if that's right for you, then it's right for you. I'm just saying that from my perspective, I didn't like that very much. And I think that there was probably, at least it felt like there was more surface area taken up by that box baffle stitching than just a vertical strand of stitching every so often. Does that make sense? Because you're taking up less space with the amount of stitching that you're putting in there. So after that season, I ended up moving that jacket and pants. I ended up selling them. And I bought the Stone Glacier puffy pants. I think it was that off season that I bought that pair of pants. And I've used them since then, off and on. You know, I kind of take them everywhere because they pack down to nothing.
What do they weigh?
Oh boy, I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head.
That's been my thing lately. I was in the store looking at stuff today. What does it weigh? What does it weigh?
I can look that up at some point.
Well, I'll let you keep talking.
Okay. I also think that they pack down smaller than the KUIU pants.
Okay.
And that's because the face fabric is a little bit lighter, I think anyway. At least it feels lighter and thinner than the KUIU face fabric did, which is one of the reasons why I kind of liked the KUIU jacket and pants in the beginning, because it seemed tougher than some of the other down jackets and pants that were out there. But after wearing them for a whole season, I realized when I'm wearing these, I'm not moving at all. And I almost always put a pair of rain pants on over them if there's any kind of wind or weather at all, you know, snow, rain, and so forth.
Right.
So I ended up going with the Stone pants, and I don't wear them all that often. And that's because I usually bring a pair of zip-off bottoms, long john bottoms, to put on underneath my pants. And I find that my legs just don't get cold all that often. And I think that's a problem that some people have, but I don't seem to struggle with having cold appendages as far as arms and legs goes. So for me, the Stone Glacier down pants are lighter, seem a little bit more packable. They can just kind of disappear into my pack, whereas something that was made of synthetic would probably be not as good of an option for me. And I would probably leave them behind a little bit more often because they'll take up more space, a little bit heavier, even though synthetic will perform better in wet environments. So for me, I've stuck with the down pants for now because I can take them anywhere and I can forget about them. And if I really, really need them, then they'll be dry and compressed in a sack somewhere that I can just pull out if I really need them. Yeah. You know, having to bivvy out with a tarp for the night on the side of the mountain.
Right.
You can do that if you got a pair of down pants. Well, you can do it without them, but it's a lot more comfortable if you have down pants.
I was going to mention the one time I've noticed issues with my legs is when I'm sitting, especially if I'm sitting ultra still. A lot of times when you're glassing, you can move enough where you don't need that extra insulation.
Yeah.
But if you're for me, it's moose hunting. If it's cold and I'm sitting ultra still because there's a moose 10 feet away from me walking past me. Mm-hmm. And, the furthest I'm going to see a moose maybe in this situation is 30 yards, then you're trying not to move.
Right.
And you feel warm until you start moving.
Right.
And then you realize all that blood on your legs that cooled down, moving really slow.
Yeah. And
you stand up, and then you start shivering.
Yep.
Exactly. And then next thing you know, you're going hypothermic because you don't have any insulation.
Right.
On your legs. Mm-hmm. And that's where I found that it's more important. And so, like I say, having to sleep.
Yeah.
Or stay somewhere.
Yeah. So it looks like those pants weigh 12.7 ounces.
Yeah, and the jacket was 11.7.
Pants are a bit heavier, a little bit more zipper material there, so 12.7. So not
And that's
much.
the large sizes for both. That changes, obviously, with size.
Yeah. So that's about my extent of experience with down pants.
Okay.
I don't tend to wear them a lot, but if I was doing more in the field in, say, October, November, on a consistent basis, they are definitely a lot more important the later in the season that you get into. Usually, I'm done guiding in the fall. I don't spend 4 or 5 months a year in the field. I just don't. I don't have the time to. It's just not what I do. And so my spring bear season for guiding is May and part of June. And then in the fall, it's usually wrapped up in last week of September. And some years, I don't even have the time to work that late. So you entered into the down pants market last year.
I did.
And you went a different direction. And so let's kind of switch gears and talk about what you chose and why.
So as I had mentioned earlier, I had up until very recently hardly touched down gear. A lot of it was price. A lot of it seemed to be practicality. It's a very specific use product. So what I have had for several years now, not pants, would be the Stone Cirque jacket, which is a synthetic.
Yep.
And I really, really liked that. I've been very, very happy with it. And it's not, so you would say, you say it's not as warm as the Grumman down? Or about the same for the jacket? For the Grumman being the Stone.
Yeah. To me, it's kind of hard to tell.
Really?
Yeah.
Just because they're so different?
Well, because I haven't used them side by side in the same environments.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I don't think I've taken my Grumman Stone Glacier down jacket hunting at all.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I have.
You didn't have it with you last year? Or did you just have the pants?
I've had the pants longer than the jacket.
Well, no, I mean last fall. When we were in the field, I thought you were wearing the jacket, but you were only wearing the pants.
Nope, I brought my Barney's jacket.
Oh, that's right.
Yep, which
you talk
is
about
synthetic.
Weight.
Yeah.
That's pretty heavy.
But you talk about a lifesaver, though.
Right.
That's a jacket. And again, we'll get to that a little bit later.
So last fall, I started with that Western Mountaineering bag of yours, which was convenient, not having to buy a bag, being able to borrow something to start with, which gave me a good introduction to down. And what I found was even from just moisture, your breath in a tent, over time, and from off your body, over time, in a matter of 10 days or so, it really started to lose a lot of loft, a lot of insulation. And so as the hunt went on, didn't necessarily get that much colder, a little bit. I was wearing more gear in a bag that really, at its rating, I shouldn't have had to wear more gear in. Like from when we started to when we ended the hunt, because it was losing so much loft. And I didn't like that.
Yeah.
But, it's the first time I'd used a bag like that. So I borrowed the bag again on my solo sheep hunt that we talked about towards the beginning of this show. And our podcast for one of the first episodes. And it was September, snowy, sleety. The more I think about how that hunt went, the more I think about, man, that was a crazy thing to do. But it was a great time. And I was looking at tents today thinking, it worked to sleep under a tarp. I don't really ever want to do it again. Like, it would do if that's all I had to, but like, if I have the option, I'm going to change my system.
Yeah.
And do something different.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I had that bag under a tarp. And it got very wet.
Yeah.
Well, before that hunt, I had purchased from First Light the Uncompahgre Puffy pant, which is a synthetic pant. Now, I went synthetic because I'd used one down product and it lost its loft so fast. I thought, I really don't want to. I don't ever want to have to worry about that. I loved the Uncompahgre Puffy pants. I put those on inside that bag. Fix the problem. I was warm, right? And they're zip off, just like the Grumman down pants are. Are most down pants fully zip off?
Most of them, yeah.
Most of them. So, yeah, they're zip off. They obviously don't pack as small as regular down. These are 18 ounces, so a little bit heavier. Yeah. But
really, only a 6 ounce
and they're probably not quite as warm.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never worn the regular down. I don't see myself ever coming to a place where I would buy the regular down.
Yeah.
Maybe I would, but I don't know. It's hard to know.
If I lived in a much drier climate state,
yeah,
and I was hunting in the mountains where it had to be lightweight, I would use down.
I could see that. And for me too, it's like I mentioned earlier, buying gear one piece at a time.
Yeah.
Especially having these pants now, I don't see where I could justify the price point.
Sure.
Right, for something that's super lightweight and everything and super small.
Yeah.
Which is the biggest advantage over these is they're lighter and they pack down smaller. Which I'll pay a lot of money for something a little bit lighter and packs down a little bit smaller. Yeah. Right.
Well, and so to actually go off of that point, the First Light Puffy pants are $195.
Yeah.
And the Grumman pants from Stone Glacier are, you want to go back to that tab? The Grumman pants are $250.
So it's not that much more, but
but
you're either buying one product.
Yeah.
So for me, it wasn't the price point between them. It was I'm buying one. And which one is more functional?
Right.
Which one's more reliable?
Yeah.
Right. And who, regardless of who I bought the synthetic pants from, I don't know who all makes pants like that, but Stone doesn't yet.
Yeah.
I would think they would to match their Cirque jacket.
Yeah. It'd be nice if they did. But Kafaru makes synthetic puffy pants, just like their Lost Park.
I don't have anything
parka.
From Kafaru.
They don't make a lot of clothing. They make that synthetic jacket that I have.
Right.
That was like my first real puffy jacket, I think.
Okay.
That was actually a Christmas present from my wife before we were even married. I think we'd just gotten engaged, and she bought me that jacket for a Christmas present, and I still have it. But they make a pants version of that, which I've heard nothing but good things about. I don't know why I haven't bought them, except for the fact that, like I said before, I don't wear puffy pants that often. And so, to me, if I'm going to have them, I want them to be able to disappear in my bag as much as possible because I just don't use them that often. So, to me, carrying more weight, taking up more space in the pack, especially when you get into a 2-week carrying things on your back for a 2-week period, space goes fast, as you know. So to me, for as much as I use them, I elected to go with down. And at some point, I'm sure that I'll end up with a pair of synthetic pants.
Yeah,
but
they have a good place.
Right. But for right now, I just haven't felt the need to get them. And that's, again, because I usually bring a pair of zip-off, pretty heavyweight. I think they're made by Kuiu, or the ones that I've got, and I've got the same pair that I bought years and years ago. But they're zip-off. I think they're a 200 weight merino. And those things are warm, man. Like, they are very, very warm. They're not super light, but to me, I would rather put on a pair of long john bottoms than a pair of puffy pants. I'm going to hold off wearing those puffy pants as long as I can. So anyway, that's just kind of my experience and your experience about puffy pants to date.
Yeah. I was going to say part of my, back to the sleeping bag thing, so I've got the Sitka 30-degree bag, the synthetics 30-degree bag.
The Aerolite
bag, yeah. And so part of my system with the idea of puffy pants or puffies is, the sleeping bag itself is essentially a piece of puffy gear.
Yep.
And so I'm all synthetic.
Yep.
Because I was like, Now, I'm granted, if I had used some of the nicer, newer treated down stuff, I may have gone a completely different direction with what I purchased.
Yeah.
But this is where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And it was cheaper to go this route in the end. But with those pants, it's a 30-degree bag, so it's not it's not like a 15 or 20 degree or even a 0 degree like a lot of guys like. But with those pants in that Cirque jacket, it's easily a 0 degree bag.
Yeah.
If not colder. And that bag has the armholes.
Yeah.
You can unzip the bottom and hook it out of your way, right? So you can walk around and still be all, with like a huge piece of puffy gear, which is what it's advertised for doing around camp or whatever. And I haven't really used it like that yet, but I could see that. And you come when it comes down to functionality, and price, like.
And I think that we put it in a stuff sack alongside of my Stone Glacier 0 degree down bag.
You did, yeah.
And I think they're pretty close to the same size.
Granted, the Stone Glacier 0 degree is a 0 degree bag.
But it's down.
And then this is a 30-degree bag, and it's synthetic. Synthetic doesn't pack as small.
I want to say that the Aerolite bag packed down a touch smaller than my Stone bag did.
Yeah.
I think that was true. But it's been a little while since we've done that.
Yeah.
Kind of looked at them side by side.
Yeah, I haven't actually taken that sleeping bag out in the field.
You had it deer hunting, but that was...
That's right, I took it deer hunting.
That was in a warm camp.
Yes, that's not really the field.
Yeah.
Not the same.
It's kind of cheating.
Not, hiking somewhere.
Yeah, that hunt is difficult in different ways.
Yeah.
But...
Well, is there any other gear you were wanting to talk about? We've about beat that to death for the moment.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit more about different ideas.
Okay.
Just briefly. So, for instance, you built your Puffy system around having synthetic jacket, synthetic pants, and a synthetic bag with a little bit warmer rating. I usually on a hunt, like for instance, not really using puffy pants all that much.
Right.
Like, let's just take, for example, what I brought last year sheep hunting. I brought, for a puffy jacket, I brought the Frontier Gear of Alaska, made by Barney's in Anchorage. I brought their puffy jacket. That one was the Brooks range. And that one kind of was at the end of its use cycle because it had kind of gotten broken down over time. I've had that jacket for a long time as well, and I've used that one a lot. Now, that is, no pun intended, the downside of synthetic garments is that over time, those synthetic fibers getting stuffed into a stuff sack and then jammed into the corner of your pack somewhere, over time that compression and then decompression and that compression, over time that breaks that material down a lot faster than it does down products. And so the lifespan, depending on your use scenario, can be a little bit shorter with synthetic material. But to me, for a functional, potentially life and death situation, throw that puffy jacket on to save your life type of deal, I'll take synthetic every time, even if I have to replace it every 4 or 5 years, which is about what I got out of that Barney's jacket. So this off season, actually, September timeframe, I made a trip to Barney's and I bought a new Barney's jacket. That's just what we've always called them. It's just Barney's puffy coats. But that Barney's jacket has a 2-layer waterproof breathable, or I would say water resistant breathable membrane for a face fabric. So that's something that I hate about puffy coats in general, is they're just fragile. You can wear the Barney's coat as your outer layer and be just fine. You can walk through some pretty serious brush without fear, or without as much fear
that you're going to rip it open,
of snagging it on a piece of thorn or an alder brush.
You wouldn't do that with that Grumman.
And tear it up. But no.
Yeah.
Just wearing that Grumman around town, I've got holes in it.
Yeah.
Just from
putting it on to go to church or whatever. Yeah.
or getting it out of my truck.
Yeah.
You know, I've got little pinholes in that Grumman jacket, and I haven't even hunted in it.
Yeah.
So the fragility of down puffy gear has always bothered me. So I don't bring down jackets hunting. And that's just my opinion. So for the sheep hunting side of it, I like to bring the Barney's puffy jacket when I know I'm going to be in potentially cold situations. And when you're where we were hunting in that part of the state, it can get cold in August.
Yep.
It can get cold anywhere in the mountains in August in Alaska, but certain areas are a little bit more prone to it. So in and out of the water, creek crossings, if you end up in the water and you got to jump out and you can't really start a fire in that situation, well, at least a lot of the time, I like having a synthetic jacket. It can be a lifesaver, and to me, that makes me a lot more okay with using a down sleeping bag. So I feel like I can get away.
That makes sense.
I feel like I can get away with having a down bag because if push comes to shove and that bag gets wet over the course of the hunt, just from the humidity in your tent at night,
right.
You climb in there hot and sweaty, and you fall asleep, and you wake up, and your foot box is just saturated as can be. You stuff it in a sack, and then you go hunting for the day, and then you put up camp that night. You pull your bag out when you put up your tent, and it's wet, and now the whole thing is wet, right? And that happens with that Stone Glacier bag. I've never had it lose too much loft to where I felt like I had to sleep in a puffy jacket yet, but I think that day would come.
Yeah.
Especially getting later and later into the fall. I think that will happen. And so I am looking at a few other options, but like you said, I feel a little bit more safe going to a little bit warmer rating. I'm sorry, a little bit less warm of a rating with a synthetic bag because I know that it's going to maintain that level of warmth even if it does get wet.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's a couple different ways you can approach it and kind of counter the potential downfalls of a down bag by bringing synthetic insulation to sleep in.
Well, and the same goes true the other way. If you bring down jacket and pants because that's what you really like because it's lighter weight, you could bring a synthetic bag.
Yep.
And then crawl into that bag with that down gear and it's going to dry it out.
It'll suck the moisture right through it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you can kind of skin that cat a couple different ways. Right. Not that we're into skinning cats. You know, we don't live in the suburbs of the lower 48. So.
Well, and I also looked at from when I purchased that 30-degree bag. It's a 30-degree bag. So it leaves me lots of room to justify buying a 0-degree bag.
Right. Yep.
Whereas a 10 or a 15 or even a 20, especially one that would be a lot more expensive, especially if it was down
already
or
in
synthetic,
that ballpark.
I'm already, it's like, well, I could just, now I have this and I could buy, or, whatever I need. I can buy another bag that fits my setup in that, like we were talking about, trying to find the right piece of gear for the situation. Right. So right now I have my dual.
Yep.
And eventually I'll probably buy nicer, more expensive gear because I can when I get around to it.
Yep. Now, something else that's interesting on the puffy insulation world that I also have is the First Light.
You have some First Light puffy?
I do. But it's not what you would think of when you think of a puffy. You know what I'm talking about?
You have the Camp Mock? No?
Remember a couple of years ago I bought...
You have that jacket.
Yes. It's the Uncompahgre Foundry jacket.
So it's a raincoat and synthetic puffy in one kind of?
Yeah. It's supposed to be something like that.
Yeah.
But so the... They shorten, the abbreviated name for that is the Unk Foundry. And it's very similar, in my mind anyway, to the idea of what the Barney's jacket is. It's a 2-layer water-resistant face fabric with the same cut and the same materials as the Omen Storm Shelter rain gear
it's not quite
First Light makes.
It's not quite as heavy of a rain.
No.
Because it's 2-layer instead of 3.5 or 4.
I think the Omen Storm Shelter is technically a 4.5 layer.
That's right, yeah.
And
this is a 2-layer.
The Unk Foundry is a 2-layer.
Yeah.
So they advertise it as a 2-layer laminate shell. It's completely windproof and waterproof. I've never tested it as being fully waterproof, and I think any breathable rain gear has its waterproof limits. That's a different topic for a different time. But the Unk Foundry jacket, and they also make a vest, which I bought that, and I like it a lot.
They also have some new stuff that fits similar categories.
Yeah. So the Unk Foundry is similar to the Barney's jacket, but If you can go back to the Unk Foundry,
right,
I'm curious if they have this listed on there. At one point, I thought it was a mixture. Go down to the
I
specification.
thought that was a different one. So it's got the 100 grams of their 37.5 active particle synthetic insulation, which is what their synthetic stuff is, and 60 on the hood and sleeves. I think they do have something that's a mix.
Yeah, it might be their lighter weight stuff that's kind of a mix.
The new one, the White Cloud Down maybe or something. Yeah,
I think that one might be a little bit of a hybrid mixture.
Yeah,
I think Sitka had a mixture in a jacket like that at one point too, and they quit making.
So is this more of the box baffle you're talking about? Or is it just...
So the Kuiu one had like...
Oh, I see. It's vertical
lines as well as the horizontal stitching.
Yeah, so this is 251 grams of Primaloft gold down, and 70% Grey Goose, 30% synthetic.
Right. So yeah, I got that confused.
That's probably really warm.
It probably is.
Hey, it's the same price as the Stone Jacket.
What's the weight?
I'm looking for the weight. They don't know... Oh, 22 ounces.
Yeah, it's a little bit heavy.
A little bit heavier, yeah.
It's about twice as heavy as the Stone is.
Yeah.
Interesting. But the thing about the...
below zero.
The thing about the First Light Unk Foundry jacket and vest that I have found with using those is that it packs down smaller than the Barney's jacket does, even though it has a very similar... face fabric layering to it. I think it's a little bit less warm, but I think it might be possibly a little bit more windproof. And I think that the layout and the design of the Unk Foundry is a little bit better of a fit. But the added warmth that you have with the Barney's jackets, I think, makes it a little bit better for extreme weather situations. But that's just something else to throw out there. You know, if people are looking for puffy gear that is designed for late season use, that you're going to be in a lot more snow, probably not as much rain that time of year, more of a end of fall, beginning into winter type of hunting conditions, than some type of a hybrid, insulated piece with also a little bit heavier exterior shell. Kuiu makes a few of those products too. Their Super Down Burner Parka, I think, is probably the most expensive puffy jacket on the market. I think it's $800 or something like that. And that's got a ton of down in it, and it's treated down, but that one has, I believe it's a 3-layer waterproof finish to it. So that's supposed to be totally waterproof. And then they have the Katana Gale Force jacket and bibs as well. So there are options if you're looking for something a little bit more durable and you're not backpacking and considering weight as much. But I try to steer people towards Barney's wherever possible. Barney's also makes their
can you
puffy
order their
gear.
Stuff online, or is it only in person?
I believe you can order it online. I know you can call the shop and just buy it over the phone. I've done that before too. But Barney's... That Frontier Gear of Alaska brand makes stuff that is good for Alaska. I mean, it's in the name, right? So that's what you would expect. But there are some companies that advertise for a certain demographic, and then they fail to, they fail to deliver to that market. Most of the time, it seems that happens. You know, people say that this is good for mountain hunting, but it's good for mountain hunting in Arizona or New Mexico, but not all mountain hunting. So there are some different categories there to consider, but those are some options if you're looking for more durable, late season into actually cold temperatures, you know, closer to 0 degrees, which there's a lot of those seasons in the low 48 as well as up here. So I think that option from First Light, and if you don't want to buy from First Light, if that's not your brand, then look at Barney's. You know, they make a good product. I think what they've got going on there is good, and there are some new things that they're doing down there that I'm excited about.
First Light also has some new jackets, new stuff, new systems, multiple new systems. They've got the thermic,
more in the whitetail.
They're definitely more directed whitetail. They're not built to be lightweight.
Sure.
This is a puffy soft shell.
Oh, so it's a quiet Puffy.
So it's soft shell on the outside.
Yeah.
It's like Sherpa lining on the inside, and it's got 175 grams of Primaloft.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's warm.
Yeah. They have that Coulter parka too.
Coulter parka, which is the 4.5 layer, right? I believe.
That's on sale right now.
4.5 layer laminate, so it's the Omen Storm Shelter.
Yep.
With 266 grams of Primaloft.
That thing makes you look like a marshmallow.
I talk about probably one of the ultimate winter jackets ever built, though.
Yep.
Having never worn it.
Yeah, me neither. But to me, this compared to the Kuiu Super Down Burner Parka, I would buy this 10 out of 10 times before I would buy the other jacket in a down. And at full price, this one's $550.
Yeah, right now it's $385. Wow.
And the Kuiu one, like I said, is around $800. So I would buy this all day, every day, twice on Sundays over the Kuiu one.
It's super well built, pockets well thought out.
Yep.
Everything about it that we like about that jacket, and it has good cuffs. It looks like too.
Yeah. Good for snow.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I have beat the snot out of that Omen Storm Shelter rain
Storm
gear.
Shelter's amazing.
That stuff is bulletproof.
Yeah.
That is really, really top of the line rain gear.
Yeah. I sighted in Point Hope, Alaska, vinyl siding sighted a church in that. Not a big church, obviously. It's in Point Hope, but
nothing's very big in Point Hope.
No.
Except the sea life.
Except the money spent to stay alive there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that really it was kind of a ultimate test for it. To me, it was like, is this kind of dumb to wear this expensive of a coat on the job site? Mm-hmm. If you'd been up there with me, you'd looked at me and said, "Are you stupid?" No, I know how you are about that stuff.
I probably would have brought.
You think so?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You wouldn't have brought rubber rain gear?
Probably not.
Okay. Well, I wore my my Omen Storm Shelter pants the other day snowboarding.
Yeah.
Which you've told me was dumb before.
Yeah, I do think that's a little bit dumb.
But I got to thinking about it.
Especially as much as you fall.
Uh-huh. Sure. Yeah. I was thinking about it, like, with what I've put these things through, I beat the brush deer hunting, right, with those things. Yeah. I mean, absolutely beat the brush. Mm-hmm. If anything was going to tear those things up, it's what I do with them actually hunting. Falling, even on some icy snow, I don't think that's going to be the problem.
You didn't get any problems with them? You didn't,
Zero.
Didn't tear any holes?
They're awesome because there's no insulation, but they block the wind great.
Yeah.
And so they're perfect. To me, they're perfect for snowboarding.
That's an expensive pair of snowboarding pants.
I'm sure there's some people that spend a lot more than that on their snowboarding pants.
Yeah. That and all that Snow Machine brand gear.
Yeah, no kidding.
Anyway, so a few minutes ago, you were going to go into something else. What was that?
Was I?
Yeah, you asked if we were done talking about gear.
No, I asked what the next piece of gear we were going to talk about was.
Oh.
Or is this all about Puffies?
This was going to be all about Puffies.
Oh, I didn't know that. You said we were going to talk about gear. You didn't even tell me about it was going to be about Puffies. So.
I specifically said it was about Puffies.
You did? Okay, 5 minutes before we started the show, though.
Yeah, I did.
Not like, when you called me today, we're talking about what the show is going to be about.
Well, I mean, there's always all kinds of topics.
There's all kinds of topics. I thought this was going to be a broader gear episode. Bring up what you want to bring up. But, hey.
This is a free country.
It is. What was I going to talk? Well, since we're talking about puffy gear and backpacking,
mm-hmm.
I was looking at tents today.
Mm-hmm.
I've just been, like I said, I don't really want to camp under a tarp again.
Yeah.
Especially in September. I found a new tent.
What'd you find?
It's Big Agnes.
Okay.
Big Agnes makes some nice products.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the Fly Creek, and they have a one person sitting there at Sportsman's.
Pull it up.
And I was intrigued. It's 2 pounds.
It's at Sportsman's right now.
Yep. They had 2 of them sitting there. I grabbed it. And I'm like, well, that's a backpacking tent,
And it's actually like a one-man size.
Yes, it is a
super small.
They have it's I'll just put in, it's a UL1, so it's a one-man.
Okay. Is it?
My goodness, it's marked down on their website. Wow. Okay, the one they had there on at Sportsman's was black.
Okay.
So this one's white, but it's a regular, 2-layer. That's supposed to be like, it looks like a mesh here, but I don't believe it actually is. I didn't open the tent there to look at it, but on the ratings, it said it was like nylon. I said it was like a ripstop or something. But
I mean, it would make sense if it was a mesh.
It would. It'd be nice too if it wasn't. But
yeah. Well, I think it would be nice if it was.
You do? Okay.
Lets a lot of air.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
My
anyway.
MSR tent is like that. My 2-man.
Okay.
There's a lot of mesh on the inside.
So you can see the
tent.
pole system. It's got the one over the opening, and then one that goes to the back, which is a pretty normal. And you got to stake out the corners.
And what's that joint look like there, where those 3 poles kind of come together?
It's hard to see. It looks like some kind of aluminum piece. Yeah.
Metal joint.
Wow,
Interesting.
It's marked down on their website right now, $220. Anyway, and then you can get a footprint for it, which is like a ground cloth.
Yeah, little protective.
Weighs 4 ounces.
Yeah.
So to me, that would be a no-brainer. 2 pounds, 4 ounces. That's your tent. If that's, I don't know. I was looking at it. I'm going to look into it more. They also say an ultra light way to run it would be without the inner tent. You can run just the poles, the fly, and the ground cloth, which doesn't look too bad.
Yeah.
Except you'd have air movement the way they show it hooked up. Hopefully, you can get that tent closer to the ground, but a few bugs.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me like you would take a hit. And for folks that don't know what we're looking at here, we're looking at the website.
Mm-hmm.
And say the name again.
The Big Agnes Fly Creek UL1.
Okay. It looks to me like on the sides here. If you take wind from the sides.
Correct. So I believe they have a tie out right there.
No support there except a guy line.
And guy lines usually do a good job.
Yeah. And it might work until it tears it right off of the rainfly. Interesting.
So this is the Solution Dye series, so it's a little different than the original, maybe.
It's probably better for the environment or something.
I don't know.
That's all the rage these days is now all these chemicals and what is it, PVC products that they're putting in. Something about
what's wrong with PVC?
And it's in the rain gear world now too. There's companies that are having, well, at least they were. I don't know about with the new presidency if that's changed, but there were companies that were talking about they might have to.
This is specifically the one I was looking at right here.
Change some of their products because of the materials used in their rain gear.
This is the new one.
Okay.
So it's not the HV. It's not the Solution Dye.
Interesting.
So that definitely does look like a mesh.
Yeah, that's mesh.
Although it looks a little tougher. They've got extra seams in there or something. And it says Hyperbead, so maybe that's something new that fabric's treated with.
Yeah. With rainfly or something.
Mm-hmm. Semi-freestand.
I mean, it seems like it is.
Anyway, that is 2 pounds.
Yeah. It seems like that would be the way that they would get the weight down so much, as having most of the interior of the tent as just a mesh.
Yeah, that combined with a few poles.
Right.
Poles is one of the big things too.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be 2 pounds. I don't know why it says trail weight 1 pound 11 ounces and total weight 2 pounds. I don't know what that means. But maybe that's the packaging. If it's really that light, but
no, there's no way. 86 inches long. That's pretty good.
And
20 square foot interior.
Yeah, 40 inches head height.
And so it's 38 inches wide at the top at the entry point, and then 28 inches long at the foot area. So a little bit of a taper to it.
Yeah.
18 inches tall at the end, and then 40 inches tall at the entry. That's kind of nice having a little bit more headroom above your head and shoulders, so you can kind of sit up a little bit easier.
15D nylon ripstop with a 1500 millimeter waterproof coating without intentionally added PFAS, or PFAs.
Yeah, no PVC or VOCs.
Yeah,
that's got to be what it is.
PFAs is another one. Yeah. Polyurethane tape seems. Gearloft. Oh. So it says their fast fly setup, which is doing it without the inner part of the tent, which is 1 pound 5 ounces.
Yeah.
Which is light. Which would be, I mean, I could see the right hunt doing something like that, except that I'd want that tent down to the ground at that point. It's ridiculous to have it up in the air that far. And that's one thing. So you have the since we're on tents, what time? How long we've been going here? Hour?
Yeah, not long.
Okay. You have the Peaks teepee.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about that a little bit today.
Yeah, the 4-man.
Yeah. And you have that with the ground cloth and stuff.
I do have I do have the ground cloth now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Peaks came out with that new tarp last year, which the whole point of was, with a few little buckles and things added to it, being able to set up as a tent easily with a couple of trekking poles.
Yep.
Which I really like the idea.
Yeah.
However, the way that they designed that to be set up as a tent, it would be great if it's 60 degrees out and not raining and hot enough that the bugs are staying away and not windy. And have you seen the way that tent is set up?
I have.
That tarp is set up?
I have. Yep.
If you get what I'm saying, it's not real practical the way they designed it to be used as a tent. It's nice that it's a tarp with doubled features, and I appreciate that. But having used a tarp as a tent, you need that thing close to the ground for it to really function.
Does it not intentionally sit very close to the ground?
Well, I remember specifically looking at the way they set it up. I watched the video. Everything I could see about it was...
I would imagine that they would have options on how close
there's
you can
how it's
set
set
it
up.
to the ground.
That's how it's set up right there.
So scroll through some of those pictures there and let me see. Yes, I mean, I'm sure you can just suck those edges down to the ground.
No, that's the edges, but the front and the back.
Yeah.
I mean, now that's cool. It's easy to set up that way, the way that, as a more open for glassing type thing. I do really like the way they set it up for that with some of the buckles and stuff, but it does not, from everything I can see,
you can't
close those ends down. And sure, you could suck the corners down to the bottom by moving where your stakes go. That's easy.
Yeah. Is there a nest for it?
I do not believe.
Like a little mesh insert?
No, they just offer stakes, and you can order trekking poles with it because you need trekking poles to set it up right.
Sure.
But see, to me,
interesting.
That kind of
So you can see it right there.
It's gonna be some rather nice weather to have that set up that way, and
that's probably what the idea of it is.
I imagine so. Right? It'd have to be built bigger.
Right.
To which increases weight quite a bit.
Yeah.
I do like their guidelines and stuff, like I said, for setting it up and other.
That seems pretty solid. They're using 4 poles there to
and because it's designed with specific guide points and things for that. Like we set up a tarp like that a bunch this last fall, but it was constant battle keeping it set up right because it didn't have any special ways to do it. This one has pockets.
Yeah.
Right, and even being able to do it like that with only 2.
And that's usually how we set it up there, like the wind shed. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, and then we'd throw extra poles back behind it to make a little more room. But and so...
Interesting.
That's what I brought that one up, not because I have an issue with it, just because I've seen that one. And looking at... I would much rather do something like... Granted, it doesn't... I'm still carrying a tent. But something like this Fly Creek with a ground cloth.
What's the weight difference between those two?
So the Fly Creek with a ground cloth without the inner tent is 1 pound 5 ounces.
Okay.
They call it the fast shelter mode. This origami TNT from Peaks, tarp only, 1 pound 5 ounces.
So it's the same weight.
It's the same weight.
But
now that probably doesn't include your trekking pole. And then it says trail weight 1 pound 7.5 ounces. So maybe that's including stakes. If you got some lightweight MSR stakes or something. Now the advantage of that is that's your tarp and your tent, right?
Right.
If the weather's conducive to that. To me, in Alaska with mosquitoes, I need to be able to make the tent hug the ground.
Yeah.
And
especially in August.
Right. And then I don't know, I guess if you could set it up to try to keep the wind off of you, you might be okay with it for that up here. It just doesn't seem like it's very conducive to this state for trying to use it as a tent.
But that is interesting. I hadn't really looked very closely at that origami tent.
I'd looked at it because I was using mine as one, and so it very much intrigued me. I thought, oh, cool, one that's designed to be a tent.
And looking at those fabrics right there, the origami tent is 20 denier.
Right.
Sil nylon versus the Big Agnes
is 15.
One-person tent is a 15 denier, so it's a lot thinner, a lot lighter.
Yeah.
Gauge, if you will.
But this doesn't include a ground cloth,
sure,
right? And it's in reality, it's probably a lot less actual coverage area. Whereas that tent, the Fly Creek from Big Agnes, is you could suck that thing right down to the ground.
Oh yeah,
but I just
yeah, that's an interesting.
These are by no means end alls. We're just bringing up some. I'm specifically bringing up products that I've been looking at, interested in, and comparing them to my experiences with other similar products.
Yeah.
I know. I was intrigued when I looked at the tent. I don't know if I'll buy one or not. Maybe if I find it on sale somewhere, I would, because it is very light, and I like the design of it for the weight. Do you know of another one-man tent that looks like a comparable design of a similar weight?
Similar weight is where it gets tough.
Right. That's the biggest thing. With the ground cloth added, which isn't necessary, but it helps.
Right.
Protect the bottom of your tent.
So Stone Glacier has a one-man tent that is not that light by any means, but it's a lot stronger. Right. The reason I didn't buy the Stone Glacier tent for a one-man shelter is I thought it was a bit too small for me. And I think the Hilleberg one-man tent that I do have is a better use of the space that's there.
Okay.
And it's a little bit longer, so I don't have to sleep diagonally. I've heard from several people that the internal dimensions are too small for the Stone Glacier one-man. Having to sleep sideways, well, not sideways, but diagonal, corner to corner if you're over 6 foot. So that was kind of a turnoff for me.
And it's
packaged weight 4.6.
That's with everything it comes with in the package, I guess. It says minimum trail weight 3 pounds 11 ounces, packaged weight 4 pounds 6 ounces. So you're probably going to be around 4 pounds.
Yeah.
So it's significantly heavier.
Yeah. But you're getting a lot more integrity out of the shelter, though.
Right.
Compared to the Big Agnes.
Right. But that's where I'm looking at. I'm looking at something that kind of splits the. I want a 2-piece tent with an inner and an outer, even if the inner is a mesh. That goes to the ground, because that's sometimes the other issue. It's hard to find. That is super lightweight is kind of what I'm looking. I'm looking at this for the idea of an actual solo, of going solo again, right?
Yeah.
If I were to run in somewhere solo again, something a little bit better than a tarp.
Does MSR have good one-man options?
I have not looked at them. Do you know anything about the Kelty ones?
Not really.
Okay, Kelty's more of a...
Yeah, I've never considered Kelty to be a fantastic
I have one
brand.
Kelty sleeping bag. It's just a 40-degree super lightweight bag that packs down that I like for...
A couple of my first bags were Kelties.
So
there's a Hubba Hubba.
There's a Hubba Hubba
bike pack one person.
Yeah, that's the bike pack ones are. This is a Hubba Hubba one person backpacking. Man, it's got 1 review and it's 1 star. And then we have a Freelight one person.
That looks real close to what.
And then we've got an Elixir one person.
Yeah,
they've got a bunch of options here. Yeah, so those are the 3 different main tent leaves, and I think. This Big Agnes may have some other options too. That was just the new one I was looking at. So this Hubba Hubba is, primarily looking at. So is that a mesh interior? Yeah, it looks like it's got a nice fly. Looks pretty.
Sit up in it. I mean, it basically looks like a downsized version of the 2-man Hubba Hubba.
Yeah.
So it's got a single vestibule on the one side, which is what the Hilleberg has, but the vestibule is a lot bigger on this one than the Hilleberg is.
Yeah.
By far.
Although the vestibule doesn't go all the way to the ground as easily, it looks like.
Well,
you could probably stake it down.
Yeah, you can just change your angle there.
That's one thing. The Hilleberg has all those flaps, so it's all the way down to the ground. A lot of these don't have that at all.
Well, and the Hilleberg is rated for a lot worse weather.
2 pounds 6 ounces minimum weight.
Maximum
packaged weight 2 pounds 11 ounces.
Yeah.
It doesn't really say.
And it's 20 denier ripstop nylon.
It's not bad. I like the look of that one, honestly, better than that Big Agnes.
I think that's probably a lot better of a tent.
Yeah.
I've had my MSR 2-man in some winds that I was wishing I had a stronger tent in, and it never had an issue.
I would never take this tent to the field. It's got these cutaways on the fly that's
the free light.
It's the free light, and it goes up around, and it opens up a foot or two of the regular tent fabric, which maybe it's supposed to be waterproof, but
I think that is, but it's too much because then you get wind up in there. Yeah.
Or without water, wind going up in there would really suck.
Yeah, that's probably more of like a 1 or 2 season tent anyway.
Yeah,
especially
the one for Big Agnes is supposed to be a 3 season.
Yeah.
It is. Oof. 1 pound 10 ounces. Packaged weight 1 pound 15 ounces.
That's pretty. That's pretty light.
That's a pretty nice looking tent for that light. But once again, in seeing these nice sunny pictures it's being set up in, I would absolutely take it. But I'm not just backpacking for the fun of it through the middle of North America for fun.
Yeah. You're not camping in the Grand Canyon.
Now this Elixir, I like the look of this. Maybe it's not quite as what's the word? Stout. Yeah, that's a word. That's not the one I'm looking for, but yeah, it'll work because I can't think of the one I'm thinking of. It's similar in some ways to the Hubba Hubba, but not quite as I still can't think of the word. We'll sure stout works. What's the minimum weight package? Okay, so this one's a lot heavier.
Yeah,
it's more of a and the price reflects that. Okay, so it looks like that Hubba Hubba 1-man. So do you have the Hubba Hubba 2-man?
Mm-hmm.
What's that weigh?
4 or 5 pounds something ounces.
Yeah. Minimum weight 3, package weight 3 pounds 6 ounces.
Yeah, I think mine is over 4 with all the stakes I carry with it.
Yeah.
Because I attached extra guy lines to every spot with a loop on the tent.
Yeah.
Especially during the evening as the wind was picking up, that last huge windstorm that I was in with that one a couple of years ago.
What is the bike pack versus the standard? Like, what's the difference?
See how wide the top is there, how much farther extended out that is, and then here.
Okay.
The Hubba Hubba doesn't, or the
1-man.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both 1-man, but this one's, I'm just looking to see minimum weight. This one has a little lighter weight.
Yeah, little different pole design, and this is...
Looks like it has a little bit of a relief cut in the fly there, too. Yeah, so it's
a little bit different.
It's designed to be strapped to the handlebars of your bike. It's funny. It seems kind of weird to me, but the amount of companies that have an option for this means it's popular.
Yep.
All right, well, since we're looking at what all is available here, anything else in your backpacking tents? Here we go. Oh, this is the rest of Big Agnes's options. We got the Sheep Mountain. Oh.
Yeah, I've seen that one in use. The 3-man.
Capacity. I'm looking for a 1-person. All right, we got I got a lot of options here. So we looked at the Fly Creek. I got the Tiger Wall. That's an interesting looking one. It looks similar to that Hubba Hubba in design. It's similar, not the same.
I probably wouldn't take that sheep hunting. Too many flat surfaces.
There you go. The copper. I've looked at the copper spurs. They look really comfortable.
Scroll back up.
Which are you looking at?
Up. No. Okay, now down. Down. So the Sheep Mountain.
Oh, there's a Sheep Mountain.
You see how it crosses there?
Yeah.
That's a lot less surface area.
That's very similar to the...
And it's also on sale for $112 right now.
Boy.
From $280. Why does that seem so cheap? What's going on there,
Okay, well, so I just want to see so this is a similar pole design to the other one we were looking at, the Fly Creek.
So tall.
Yeah, it's tall, lots of flat surfaces. It's not a windy area type design tent.
No, not at all.
What is the weight? Trail weight, total weight, 2 pounds, 2 ounces. It's very light, but you can tell by looking at the fabric. It's almost translucent. What's the material? It says it's a 15 denier. Okay, now the Sheep Mountain one. This looks more like the what's it called? I can't remember what it's called. We just used them last year.
The Hillebergs.
The Hilleberg. It's similar, more of a similar build. Not the same, but similar.
Yeah, a lot lighter.
No.
Really? Oh, look at that.
It's 5 pounds.
Well,
it's 5, 6 pounds.
Yeah, total weight 6 pounds. Interesting.
Polyester ripstop. Polyester Oxford floor. So it's a heavy weight.
Yeah.
I mean, lightweight, but not really. It's a heavyweight, lightweight backpacking tent. And it's, looks pretty heavy duty.
What's the fabric denier on that?
It doesn't say. It just says polyester ripstop.
90 inches long.
Which is polyester ripstop is a much heavier than a nylon denier or nylon lightweight.
Yeah, so
90 inches. So yeah, it's nice and long. 38 inches wide all the way through with a 30-inch vestibule. Looks nice, but at that point I would just buy a well, not for the price point.
No.
It's hard to beat that price.
That's probably a pretty stout little tent, too.
It looks like it,
and you see how the poles are sleeved all the way around the top, so that is a big advantage because when that rain fly gets to moving and pushing, that distributes the tension on the pole so that it's not just singular points of contact all the way through.
Right.
That's how stone glaciers, they call it a web truss.
Yeah.
That's what they call that.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. That might be one to put in your back pocket.
I mean, for that price.
Yeah, especially for that price. Now, I don't see a lot of guy lines spots there. I would want one there.
This tent to me would be more, see, if I was in the market for a heavier tent, I still can't remember the Hilleberg. I'd buy a Hilleberg. Really, if I was buying what I wanted.
Yeah, but a Hilleberg one man is almost $1,000.
It's a lot more money. So that's a big disadvantage, but it is a lot better tent overall, I'm sure. So that's what I would prefer if I was looking for a tent like this in that weight. Yeah. What I'm thinking, going solo, you are carrying everything. And so to me, I'm not looking
and you could pretty easily take the Rainfly to a sew shop here in town and have them stitch guy line loops on
you could have guy line loops added.
You have 1, 2, 3 on each side, one at the midpoint there on the end. There's already one on the bottom there. I'd put another one on each angle here on the hem.
Yeah, it's just because they're so long.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you want a lot.
This is one that intrigues me. So this is a similar design to those other ones.
Yeah.
The copper spur here. Not available right now.
I think we're probably spending too much time talking about things that the audience can't see at this point. So,
well, you can follow along, just listen to what we're saying and look it up.
Or maybe you could put pictures on the screen if you feel like doing all that.
I may.
Back and forth.
We will see. Hey, only 2 pounds. Wow. 2 pounds, 6 ounces.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. That's another tent. Another one by Big Agnes. You can use your trekking poles to stake the fly out or the vestibule out to be kind of a fly. Or not a fly, awning, I guess.
Yeah.
It looks like a cool tent too. I don't know. I think I looked at these a little bit.
Tents are just one of those things to me where
there's so many
when
options.
I have a good one, I tend to just use it.
Oh yeah.
And I did that for a long time with that MSR tent.
Yeah.
And then, like that 4-person teepee from Peaks.
Mm-hmm.
I like the teepee. I like the ability that I have the option to put the wood stove up in there if it really does get cold. I think I only used the wood stove once or twice last fall because September was so warm. But I like that ability, but it's not a sheep hunting tent. The 1-person Hilleberg tent, I think, is probably my favorite 1-person type tent that I've ever used.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've only used a few of them, but I really like that Hilleberg. Even though it is heavy, I know it's going to stand up to a bad windstorm. For a 2-man tent, I like the MSR. So to me, those are all good options for what their intended use is.
But
so
Hilleberg makes a good 2-man tent too.
Well, yeah, but again, you get into the pricing of it, and that's why I only have one Hilleberg tent. But I don't know. I tend not to experiment a whole lot with different tents.
Yeah.
Because
you have something that works.
Yeah, I have something that works, and that's that.
Much, yeah. Well, I'm just, like I said, I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And hey, if anybody has any options.
Yeah.
Like that you like a lot, I'm looking for something in that under 3 pounds. range.
Really?
Yeah.
You think
for solo.
You think that's going to have the integrity that you're going to want for a worst case scenario storm?
I am. It's going to be a little bit of a compromise, like everything, right? Like I said, I would buy a Hilleberg, absolutely. Except that when I'm going in by myself, especially if I have to carry water, people like to say every ounce counts, and then they're cutting their toothbrush off, right? I just say, why bring a toothbrush, right? I'm just joking. Somewhat.
There's a T-shirt idea.
There you go.
A toothless Moriah. Why even bring a toothbrush?
There you go. Okay, yeah, go to the dentist once or twice a year, and they take care of everything for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the dentist is for.
Quick caveat. We've also gotten quite a few listener questions lately about merch. So if you are interested in a Great Alaska Hunting Podcast T-shirt or hoodie or ball cap, send us an email at, what's our email?
GreatAlaskaHuntingCompany.com.
Okay.
Well, that's that. Go to the website and you'll find the email.
Go to the website. I don't
remember the specific email right now.
Yep. Go to our website and contact us there, or you can reach out to us on our social media accounts, either on Instagram or Facebook. Just search our names and we'll pop up on there, or search the podcast's Instagram page. You can hit us up on there as well. I don't do a lot with it. I just have it for the domain. We do most of our stuff through
we'll do more
our personal accounts. But anyway, if you're interested in a piece of merch, and we have some ideas for some in-house designs and some things that'll probably offend some people, but
make a lot of other people really happy.
It's Alaska, and we think it's funny. So anyway, if you are interested in that, send us a message so we can kind of gauge interest and get an idea of how many people in total, so that we can make an order and get something together here. I'm not going to make any promises on timeline, because if it's not to a certain level, then we're just not going to do it. Or if we run out of time before spring bear starts, then we'll just wait. But if you want a piece of merch, then let us know. Anyway, as you were saying. Counting ounces, toothbrushes.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Pounds make a bigger difference than that. And so going from a 4 or 5 pound tent to a 2 or 3 pound tent makes a huge difference.
It does.
And yes, you are looking for at what is the potential worst case scenario, right? At the same time, the last time I went on a solo sheep hunt, I took a tarp, right? In that tarp, while it wasn't my favorite thing to have, did handle a pretty. It wasn't a ton of snow, but it was as bad as it could get, probably without a worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Rain, wind, sleet, no visibility.
Yeah.
Right. And I had ice on the outside of that tarp, an inch thick when I got up. If a tarp can handle that, and it with the snow, I would have just had to wake up and push the snow off. Right.
Right.
High winds. I had everything but the heavy snow.
How hard do you think the wind was blowing? I don't know if
I don't remember. You did ask me. I think I said it was 20, 30.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, consistent 20, 30. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't crazy.
Yeah. Just enough to be annoying.
Having been in some 60, 70.
Yeah.
Which is insane. Right. Especially if you decided to set your big canvas tent on top of a knoll. I did that one time, and then I moved it the next day. That was not the best thing to do. But anyway, yeah, that was gusting, right? But still, when your tent that you can almost stand up in is 6 inches from your face, and you're wondering how long it's going to, it survived. It made the night, but you're not going to get up and move it.
Not in that way.
Yeah. Anyway, counting ounces, counting pounds. I'm going to have a tarp with me regardless.
Sure.
Right. That's my emergency.
Do you think that you'll go lighter in tarp weight in the future?
I don't know. Probably not.
No?
I think that 1 pound tarp is fairly around 1 pound with stakes, adding stakes in, right?
Sure, yeah.
Most tarps are around that 1 pound. Not all of them are, but most of the nice, heavier, it's definitely heavier than a lot of the, or heavier weight and stuff than a lot of these tents are and stuff, but it's, it's about 1 pound. Some guys will bring stakes for tent and tarp. I'll probably try to bring, I don't know. I'll figure that out, but I've got those MSR groundhog stakes. I really like those.
Yeah, those are awesome.
They're lightweight. They're small. They work really well.
They don't bend.
No, they don't bend, which is crazy.
I have not bent
has
one.
blown my mind.
Yeah.
How strong those stakes are.
Yeah.
After having I had some Coghlan's lightweight ones.
That's what I started with too.
And I try to you push it into the ground with your foot, and it goes right in, and you pull it out, and it's a
it's bent in a horseshoe just about.
Yeah, and it's like what? That didn't push against anything.
I mean, hey, it just wraps around.
None of them have broke yet.
Just wraps around. The
and
rocks.
sometimes that 45 is exactly what you need to get around a rock. But
I have broken those before.
Have you? Okay. So I haven't broken them yet, but that's not saying it won't happen. But I don't know. I do know, and I would take a tarp with a lightweight tent. I'm always going to have the tarp.
Yeah.
To me, that's a must-have piece of gear.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is an issue with the tent, I have the tarp.
Yeah.
Right. Most of the time, you're not going to have an issue to where you need that tent. Mm-hmm. Now, the later in the season you get, and further north, and all the different things that, sure. Could we get 12 inches of snow in the middle of August? Could happen.
Had it happen.
It's happened.
It melted 2 days later, but it happened.
Right. Well, and the same thing. As long as you maintain keeping the snow off your tent, you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Wind could be an issue. Right.
Yep.
Well, set the tarp up with the trekking poles over your tent if you have to. Right. If that's what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
But those are not guaranteed situations. Most of the time you're going to go fine. You're going to go on a hunt, and you might have that happen for a day or two of the hunt, but it's not going to be what defines the hunt. Now, it could define the hunt if all you had was that tent. And so I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Right?
It all sounds good till a tent collapses on your face at 2:00 in the morning. Yeah. And it's 70-mile-an-hour winds. And
right. So that would suck.
Blasting rain.
I agree. That would suck. But then I have a tarp to set up.
Right. Well, at that point, you put your stuff on and you stuff your tent in your pack and you start walking and
well, right. But then
there.
When you still need shelter, you have a tarp, and that's your backup. And that's not an ideal situation.
But to be fair, that could happen with any tent, no matter how good it is.
Right.
And part
of
you
that
could
is say something, a Hilleberg, that'd probably never happen. And hey, maybe it wouldn't.
Maybe it wouldn't, but part of that also has to do with how you orient your tent with the wind. Now, it can change during the night.
Oh, yeah.
We've had that happen.
Change 5 different directions in 3 hours.
But also where you put your tent up. Mm-hmm. Are you completely exposed? Could you have walked another quarter mile one direction and blocked off 3 directions of wind by a rock wall? Then you probably should have done that.
And like I said, if you think there's going to be an issue, you can set that tarp up with those trekking poles over your tent and create a windbreak and snow stop.
Trying to gauge the weather off your inReach. If you know there's going to be some heavy winds coming. Now, it's not always going to tell you if there are, but it's usually pretty close.
Yeah, gets you an idea what you got.
And so if you know there's going to be a bad windstorm, then you pick your campsite accordingly as much as you can.
So that's where, because weight affects not only comfort going in, it affects speed.
Yeah.
It affects how much of that meat you can carry at one time on the way out. It affects everything about the hunt.
Yeah.
And I used to think, I knew it mattered, but it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Well, it adds up.
Yeah. Until you go do it. Yeah.
And if you're 2 or 3 guys, well, one guy's carrying a 2-man tent, right? Most likely because that's the lightest way to go is 1 2-man tent instead of 2 1-man tents.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Then usually a lot of times it's maybe 1 rifle, depending on how it's going.
Some
right?
Guys do that.
1 spotting scope, right?
1 tripod,
right? So a spotting scope and tripod can easily weigh 5 pounds.
Oh yeah,
easily, if not a lot more. And so everything I'm building my kit for is me going solo, because it's kind of the do-all, right? If I can go solo with it, well, I can easily go double with it, right?
Absolutely.
And if I'm going to go solo, well, I want my tent to be 2 pounds or 2.5 pounds. And then I'm still going to have a tarp and plenty of stakes and my trekking poles. I'm always going to have that with me.
Yeah.
And so if it's an issue, well, if I can survive in a tarp for 5 days in horrible weather, and my tent collapses, then I know I can survive in a tarp. I've tested it. I've done it.
Yeah.
I know that it's the same thing with the down versus the. It's exactly what fits the situation. It fits every situation best. And
versatility.
Yeah, and so I've even looked at some of the tarp tent stuff because £1.50 seems awful tempting. But then you look at it a little bit more and say, I can see through that wall and the other wall.
Yeah.
In that picture.
Yeah.
And, it's a 10D. Yeah. 10 denier fabric. And
pretty much.
It weighs under a pound, though. You know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No thanks.
No, that wouldn't, you see, and it wouldn't stand up to hardly anything.
Right.
So that's why I'm looking for something along those lines.
You know, with as much as you're getting into this lightweight stuff, you should just buy a bivvy.
No, there's a comfort level to be had too.
I agree. That's why I don't use one either.
The bivvy, I've slept in a bivvy.
Have you?
Yes.
Really? I didn't know that.
In a long time, but I did sleep in a bivvy once.
Yeah.
I'm good. It was a 2-man bivvy, basically.
Still felt like you were stuffed in a sock.
I was a teenager, and my dad and I had attempted to take his old track rig he had rebuilt out to his cabin, and it had broken down on the way in.
Nodwell?
No, he didn't have a Nodwell. It was a Cushman.
Oh. Why did I think he had a Nodwell?
No, he never had a Nodwell.
Okay.
Nodwell probably wouldn't have had an issue going in there. There's other guys in there with Nodwells, but
that would make sense.
So he rebuilt it and used a lot of old parts, and so we had a lot of linkage and things that were just breaking, and so we patched it together and we're on our way out, but on the way out it got, we just didn't make it out in time, and so he had a tent with him just in case, and it was like this little 2-man bivvy style tent, and we survived, but
yeah,
I'm good. I don't need it.
It doesn't look like a whole lot of fun.
No, I can't sit up in the thing. Like what?
Yeah.
Like I can understand perhaps if you're not planning on camping, and that's your backup, right? Underneath the snow machine seat, right in the 4-wheeler, because you're not planning on camping and it should be a through trip one day. I'd get that, but otherwise, they don't really seem that.
To me, and again, this is applicable to other environments.
Mm-hmm.
But if I lived in the lower 48 and I was doing a lot of relatively warm weather stuff in the summer or late spring or even early fall, like lower 48, August, they have really nice weather down there. And so do we sometimes, but usually by the time our August comes around, it's
starting to cool off at
45 to 55 and raining a lot.
Right.
But if it was dry climates and you're sleeping underneath the stars and it's 80 degrees during the day and you just need a place to get out of the wind at night.
Well, in some places in the lower 48, August is their hottest month.
Yeah, and it gets down to maybe 50 degrees at night, and you have a slight chance of a sprinkle on your trip, then sure, a bivvy would be awesome.
See, the biggest thing for me against the bivvy, though, is there's no room.
Well, but that's the point, though. You don't need room because you don't even hardly need a sleeping bag.
I guess that's true.
To
me, being able to crawl into my tent, and or sleeping bag,
just separation,
and have that separation, and sit up and read a book.
It's a mindset thing,
to me, I don't know,
because as long as you're outside, you feel like you got to be working.
Yeah, to some extent.
That's kind of how it feels to me.
To some extent, to also it's that getting into bed at night. You might not go to sleep for an hour or two when you get into bed at night.
Oh yeah,
but you are now calming down. You're slowing down. You're trying to hopefully slow the brain down by staring at blue light.
Yeah, it's going to give you all brain rot.
Reading a book, watching a movie, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And if you do get a rain day, which we think we have heavy rain up here, they get a lot heavier rain in the lower 48 than we get up here.
Yeah, some places.
And most places.
There's some pretty dry places down there.
I know there's so sure, given some of the drier areas, but overall, the majority of the lower 48 gets heavier rain than we do. Yeah. And it's a lot of, and that's where we don't really get flash floods and stuff up here. It's because our rain's just not that heavy, right? Sure, we'll see the creek rise 1.5 feet. Oh man, that was a lot of rain. Yeah, but the canyon, the canyon didn't disappear. Right. My dad grew up in Ohio. I remember him talking about getting caught in a flash flood while rock climbing.
Wow.
And they were okay on the rocks, but all their gear was gone.
Wow.
And they were hanging out on the rocks and wearing nothing but their boxers or whatever. And just having a good time, and then all their gear got and clothes and everything got. Anyway, it's a great story. I don't know if you've heard them tell that one, but
I don't think I have.
It's a great story. It might be a good one to have him tell on the podcast one day.
I'm kind of upset that he hasn't told me that after 10 plus years.
Well, maybe make it out to Moose Camp this next year or something.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that sounds about like the kind of story that he would tell.
But it was a great story. But anyway, flash floods, lots of water, rain. We don't really get that kind of a rain coverage up here. But so if you're stuck now, granted, it's also not a big issue to be wet down there.
Right.
Up here, wet equals cold, right? Or wet or dry can mean life and death, right?
Which is why we care so much about puffy gear.
Right, and what level of dampness you are and all that kind of stuff, and trying to not sweat and all those kinds of things. For me, I find if it's August and I'm, granted, is there a lot of hunting that happens in August down there, or is it more later season?
Like early deer archery seasons.
Okay.
Yeah, and
you follow that stuff more than I do. So
well, not really. I just hear things. I guess I don't.
Like fall bear, is that usually later, or is that August?
No, I think they have August black bear stuff too. Okay. At least like on the northwest area, like Washington. Okay. I believe that some of that.
They still hunt bear in Washington
for now. Yeah, I believe that some of that stuff takes place in August. As a matter of fact, I know that at least in Washington, there's a black bear season in August.
I was in like Tennessee area in August for my honeymoon.
I remember.
It was 90 degrees during the day, and it cooled down to 75 at night.
I didn't mean to be weird there and say that I remember because I was there on your honeymoon. I just meant that I was at your wedding, and then I left to go sheep hunting.
Yeah, well,
I was a little bit upset at you that you got married right before sheep season.
Yeah, it could have been worse. I could have got married in the middle of sheep season. Yeah, I didn't do that, though.
That would be worse.
Yeah.
You know who you are out there.
I have a friend that got married in the middle of moose season. Wasn't at his wedding.
Oh, yeah. Topic for another time.
Yeah, anyway. What was I? So, for me, 90 degrees and hiking, they don't really go real well together. My shirt was soaked. So it's, I don't know. That's a lot of talking to say it's a different world down there to up here.
It is.
I personally still don't think I'd want a bivvy. To me, it's just not, it's a comfort level thing, being able to sit up. Yeah. Even if I'm not spending a lot of time in it. Hey, maybe it's fine. And if all you're doing in there is sleeping, if you literally crawl in there, go to sleep, and crawl out, I guess I get it. But once again, to me, it's more of an emergency backup type thing than it would be, like I said, in the four-wheeler. Yeah. Now I'm thinking about it. Maybe I should get one to throw in the four-wheeler.
Well, a good one is like $300 to $400.
Well, okay. I'll be bringing my tarp on the four-wheeler.
Yeah, that's usually what I do.
Are they really that much money? Well, then why use a bivvy? Are they really that light? I mean, it's somewhat less material, but
it's light and it's the versatility of it. And, because if you can lay down there, then you can just lay down there. You don't have to worry about staking it out.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
You can just lay down.
They're probably really good for wind and everything. And
what's it going to do? Roll you away?
I just mean it's not going to catch wind and get ripped apart.
Right. Might be kind of loud in there if it was windy, though.
All that fabric rippling right next to your face.
That would, come to think of it, doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun.
I don't know. If you like bivvies, tell us.
It's not our thing.
No, I don't know. Like I said, have you slept in a bivvy?
Nope. I almost bought one at one point just for using.
There's some people that's all they like. Oh, you need a bivvy.
Well, but here's the thing, though. I almost bought one to use because I have a down bag that I've been using a lot. When I'm using that in a teepee, because there is zero moisture control in a single wall tent.
Oh, right.
And so you wake up in that teepee in September.
Oh, I see. So just use the bivvy
when it's cool
with the bag in the teepee.
Right. Because then your foot box rubs up against the inside wall of that teepee.
How much does that bivvy now weigh and add to your tent weight?
Not much. It's it's like that big. It's tiny when it's packed up.
Right. Well, right, but
And if I'm bringing the teepee, I'm usually not backpacking.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm bringing that camp in on a boat.
Most of the stuff I've seen where guys are
using
using that teepee is a backpacking. I mean, that's how it was designed.
Yeah, and see that's kind of where I differ on that because I don't use a teepee on a backpack.
And we don't really hunt that style hunt where you'd want that kind of a tent anyway.
Not in late September.
Backpack, yeah.
And if I'm backpacking, then I'm not usually going to bring a stove, and I'm not bringing a floorless.
Now, if we were backpacking for spring bear, it would probably
be different.
Yeah, which is primarily how that's used.
Yeah, I mean,
not primarily, but how I've seen it used.
The guys that use those teepees in the lower 48 and swear by them, and those guys, you know who you are, and I've got friends down there that do that. That's what they like. It's just not my cup of tea. Now, those guys are also hunting a lot in groups.
Yeah, right.
So there's enough people to split that weight up in. Somebody can carry the chimney for the stove. Somebody can carry the stove
10
body.
10-day or 2-week hunt.
Somebody can carry the
so
teepee.
It's a comfort level thing.
Right. Somebody else can carry the floor if they want to bring a floor.
Right.
And,
and a lot of those guys just are floorless all the way.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. If that's what you like, then that's what you like. But I think that for what I use the teepee for, and in my application, when I'm guiding spring bear hunts, we're sleeping in either a big wall tent, which is pretty awesome to basically have a portable fabric cabin to sleep in.
Yeah, I'll keep looking at buying a wall tent for family camping.
My dad got one last year.
Did he buy one from Sportsman's there that they had, or?
I think he picked up one used somewhere. That seems awesome.
Everyone I've looked at seems awesome.
Yeah, I've only ever used wall tents. Our friends that come up here to moose hunt, they use a wall tent.
That's right. Yeah.
When I'm in town, I help them set that thing up. And then in the spring, sometimes we use wall tents and just put a tarp over them so they don't absorb too much water.
It's kind of wall tent that our friends use that I kind of go, that's not really the wall tent I want.
It's huge, though.
It's huge, but it's...
And you can fit a big enough wood stove in there to
I know, but they have to use so many logs and everything to hold the thing up and tie off. It looks like a ton of work to set up versus...
1-inch conduit.
Versus the one that was set up at Sportsman's.
1-inch conduit is the way to go.
And it's super quick and easy looking to set up. And
I really like the 1-inch conduit or 3/4 inch.
As in what kind of conduit though? Just EMT?
I'm not that kind of guy.
Thin wall metal conduit?
Yeah, it's not thin. It's stout stuff. That's not my trade, so I don't know a lot about conduit, but it's conduit.
Rigid? Is it threadable?
No,
so it's EMT, which is a thin wall metal conduit.
But you just cut that to length for your dimensions of your tent, and then you can buy from Alaska Gear Company, which absorbed tent and tarp, and you can buy all those joints for the trusses and then for the end caps and then for your sides, and it's awesome. I mean, it goes together super fast. You just put your frame together, and then you got to have your poles separated by length, but put it all together and then just put the tent over it. That's the best way to do those. Or in the spring, we'll use a 6-man Cabela's guide tent.
I bought an 8-man one of those.
Yeah, I remember you told me
I haven't used it yet, but I was pretty happy with that. I bought it for $100.
That's a good deal. But point being, in the spring, you know, it's usually guide and client, and so we fit 2 guys in a 6-man tent on cots, and then you got the rest of your gear blown all over the place in there.
Yeah, that's super nice.
And so that application, I don't need the teepee. I don't know that I would want the teepee because of how many bugs there are out there. You know, those sand flies and black flies and no-see-ums that just appear out of the beach sand every spring are a menace by the time the season's over. So bugs and then comfort for a client. You know, sometimes we have a little bit older gentlemen that show up to hunt. They're not going to want to crawl into a little 4-man teepee and sleep on a cot that's 8 inches off the ground and have to squeeze past a wood stove pipe. And, you know, so that there's just different applications. So spring bear, I don't need the teepee. That's my point there. In August, I need a more portable shelter that requires a lot smaller footprint to set up. Whether it's caribou hunting, grizzly bear hunting in the mountains, or sheep hunting, I need something that has a small footprint. And the teepee that I have doesn't have a small enough footprint for that. So I don't use it much in August. I did use it on that alpine deer hunt that we went on a couple of years ago with Ryan. And it was good for that, because we had good ground to set it up on. It wasn't super swampy. Bugs weren't that big of a deal. I didn't think. I think Ryan brought a nest for his I still don't have a nest for mine. I didn't think the bugs were all that bad. But you can also just pitch it right at the ground level and just pull those edges down and seal it off more. And just keep the door closed like any other tent. But then in September, when it gets into moose season, if the hunt is, set up in such a way that I can bring more weight, I can bring a stove, then I bring the teepee, and it's awesome for that. So to me, it's all about what you're doing, how mobile do you have to be, how much weight do you want to bring, who has to carry all of it.
Yeah.
And so for me, that teepee, for what I've been doing for the last several years, the teepee is best suited for September.
It seems like it'd be a great wheeler boat.
Oh, it's awesome for that.
Because it packs down a lot smaller than like a Cabela's tent.
It packs down really tiny.
Like trying to wheeler in a Cabela's tent
it's a lot of space.
Everything you need, like, and then and if you're wheelering in a Cabela's tent, you're probably bringing a cooler of food and
sure.
And then I've got pictures of my wheelers stacked with gear that I've gone in by myself, and
looks like the Beverly Hillbillies.
And it's, hey, you know what though?
You're comfortable and
and I got enough food for a month.
You're full, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I grew up sleeping in those 6-man Cabela's tents.
Yeah. Those 6-man tents are awesome.
With my dad when we'd go bear baiting.
I don't like the 6-man Instinct tents from Cabela's. I've used a couple of them.
What's the difference?
Nowhere near as good as the guide tents are.
So is the Instinct just not the guide version?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have the wind vestibule. It has the round one. I think that's the one I mostly grew up in. It's almost the exact same, the vestibule, except for the poles in the vestibule.
Yeah, it's similar to the guide in some ways, but different enough in others. And I can't remember
I don't know
all
if
the
it's
differences.
the same, because that's what I grew up.
But what I can say is the poles are different and they bend.
Okay.
And like permanently kink a lot easier.
But they're still aluminum?
Yes, but some of the older guide model tents had those like silver and whitish colored poles that are a different material, or at least they're coated in something different.
Okay.
And they're way stronger than just the bare aluminum poles are.
Interesting.
Way stronger.
So
I believe the Instinct has one fewer pole, if not 2 fewer poles, maybe.
Okay.
And there's a really stupid
so that's quite a bit different
ridge cap rod that's a little mini pole that goes in after you put the whole thing up, put the rainfly on, and you've got to wedge this little, boomerang-shaped pole.
Through like a tube?
No, it goes into 2 little butt ends underneath the rainfly, but
so that's
outside of the shell.
Different, quite a bit different.
And it just kind of props the cap of the tent up a little bit. It's a real pain in the neck to set up by yourself. It's a nightmare. Yeah. The guide tent you can do.
So my dad had the original Cabela's geodesic, and they may not have even offered the guide model at the time. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was the original Cabela's geodesic. It's exactly, as far as I know, it's exactly like the guide tent.
Yeah.
Except the material. Like the guide tent's made a little bit better material, like the same colors and everything, but the guide tent's just a little beefier, better poles. And it has the vestibule is the V, or I always called it a V, but it's got that angled vestibule with the 2 zippers.
Yep.
As opposed to
that's the way the guides are.
The other geodesic that he had like you'd put another pole in the vestibule through a tube.
Yeah.
Like fabric
that's
tube
still how
that would
the
hold it out
are.
And it would lean out.
Yep.
But it didn't have the angle down. It just had like a regular traditional tent zipper on the front of it. It was kind of out more and angled.
Okay.
I like the guide style way better.
Yeah, me too.
But so I've slept many nights.
Man, I've had
that original geodesic.
We
took it camping as teenagers.
Yeah, we did.
That wasn't the guide one. That was the the other
that was
one.
The original.
And
I have slept through some nasty winds
Yeah.
in the Cabela's Guide 6-man. That sucker is a strong tent.
So my dad has a friend who who he's bear baited a lot with. And we were up caribou hunting on the Hall Road. And we were up there.
Did you just spot burn?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yes. Yeah.
We don't do that on this show.
No, not at all. No. Hall Road near where was it near? Oh yeah, that one tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of trees on the Hall Road.
Yeah.
Especially when you get north of the pass. Yeah.
Yeah. Massive forest land up there.
Anyway,
for
we were
those
up
that
there
don't know, we're being sarcastic.
in the area. It's amazing the number of people on the internet today that don't understand sarcasm. But that's another point. For a different podcast, right there. Yeah. Anyway,
we'll go ahead.
Back to Cabela's geodesics.
Yeah.
We got into area where the caribou were, on the road.
Yeah.
Parked, and we were there there was another guy who put his cab over camper on a trailer and then towed it up with his pickup truck. I don't know why he did that.
Oh.
But he was comfortable. No, I don't know if he wanted the truck, but why he didn't just put his gear in the trailer. I don't know why, but that's what he did. Maybe so he could. I think it was he wanted to be able to leave the camper and drive away from it while he hunted.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, you can still. Most of those are pretty easy to jack up and drive away from under. But whatever. Hey, it was him, not me. Anyway, so he did that. I remember sitting in there eating hot dogs and stuff. But and we had a geodesic that my dad would set up to sleep in. But we'd set it up, sleep in it, and then take it down. Mm-hmm. My dad's friend had a geodesic he set up, and he threw a tire in it to keep it from blowing away in the wind, but he didn't stake it down or put any guy lines out. And the wind just drug it and destroyed the tent. Anyway, that's not the proper usage.
Did anybody take pictures of that?
I don't think so. This was before all your phones and everything took pictures.
This
was a long time ago, but anyway, yeah. For my dad commenting on that.
Oh boy!
But it was I think we got there and it was sideways and upside down. With it's just kind of hanging with the tire, holding it from blowing away. But anyway, that was my first.
Yeah.
I think it was my first haul road caribou experience.
Yeah. Sure gets windy up here, huh, Clark?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Huh. That's funny. I hadn't heard that one before either.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of stories. Lots of stories. I was sitting in that camper eating hot dogs, and I was sitting in that camper, and our other friend there, who brought the camper up, he was cooking hot dogs on the little oven in there, and he goes, "Got Hebrew National hot dogs, and I'm cooking them in bacon grease." I distinctly remember that.
Oh,
if you know, you know. If you don't get it, then
is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think that about wraps this one up.
I think that's a good one. This was an interesting episode.
Yeah. Just kind of here, there, and everywhere. Insulation, shelters.
Yeah. Talked a lot about tents.
And a couple of backcountry bloopers.
Oh, there you go.
Need some Bill dance music.
You got any backcountry funny bloopers to add in there? Anything around tents?
No, I got one about hip boots, but I'll save that one for another time.
Yeah, that doesn't really fit the topic. Got one about insulation. Oh, come on, man. You got to have something. He'll think of it as soon as we end the show.
Yeah, I don't know about bloopers that are funny. I mean, I've had people that are asking to borrow stuff halfway through a hunt because they budgeted a little too severely. And
it's not a dig at me, is it?
No.
Okay.
No. This is talking about other people. No. People that were asking to borrow stuff halfway through a hunt because their stuff was no longer warm and it had been saturated and wouldn't dry. And they're like, I don't know why it hasn't dried. I do. Why not?
Hey, come on.
There is one story. This was quite a while ago.
Yeah. Okay.
There was a gentleman who came up for a hunt. And we had hunted together for, I think he'd only been up for a handful of days.
Okay.
Shot his animal. I'm not going to be specific about what it was or where it was. Mm-hmm. He's not a podcast guy. He's never going to listen to this. And I know he wouldn't have a problem with me telling the story because he laughed about it and said, well, here's a lesson why you don't bring this. He was an older gentleman and he loved his Tighty Whities.
Oh, yes, this story.
No, not the one you're thinking of.
No?
There's two.
Whoa.
There's two stories about
all right. Well,
guys in Tighty Whities.
I get a new story today, huh?
Yeah. I don't think I've even told you this one. This happened quite a while ago.
Okay. All right.
This was early on. And a couple days in, I started noticing that, every day when I would leave the tent and kind of get out and start glassing in the morning, get some breakfast rolling, whatever. And he would stay in his tent for a little bit longer. And I could hear that he was up. And I would kind of hear him kind of grunting and, like he was changing his clothes, whatever. Okay. You kind of hear some zippers and him changing his clothes seemingly every morning. And so I thought, okay, well, I've seen this before. Some people just want to change their undergarments more regularly than I guess I do, because I have some mean kill streaks on some undergarments over the years. Yeah. But after a few days go through in this hunt, we got a nice sunny day, and so I'm getting some things out. I think it was about middle of the day. It was probably about noon. Sun was just straight up in the sky. It was warm. I mean, I was in my t-shirt. I'd taken my socks off. I was in my Crocs. We were just in camp at that point during the day. And I had taken a pair of wool socks that I'd been wearing for weeks prior to that. And I thought, you know what? Today's change your socks day. And I think I even made a comment about it. And I said, I'm going to take my socks in the water here and kind of wash them off. Okay. I had a bar of Irish Spring with me, and so hey, I'll just rub some Irish Spring on these babies and scrape them on a rock like the pioneers did, and then I'll just hang them up over this little tree branch here next to camp or whatever, and I'll let them air dry. Well, he said, that's a good idea. So he goes into his area and pulls out a bag of dirty laundry. Okay. And I don't mean a grocery sack. I mean like an old army duffel. And it's about half full. And in there are cotton socks, like white cotton socks, and Tighty Whities.
Nice.
A lot of them.
Nice.
None of which were folded and clean. They had been discarded from previous days. And I said, you've been changing your clothes every day, have you? And he goes, yep, that's just how I am. That's how I was raised, and that's how I've lived all my life since then, and I change my socks and my drawers every day. So he takes his laundry down to the water, and he mutters a few comments that I'm not going to repeat on the podcast about his drawers and the state of them and the cleanliness thereof. And he scrubs them on a rock for a bit. He asks, "I don't have any soap. Do you have any soap I can use?" And I said, yeah, I think I got a little mini bottle of Dawn dish soap over here. I was not about to loan him my bar of soap that I wash my face with every night. So he proceeds to wash all of his cotton drawers and socks, and then he hangs them up over the guy lines of the tent.
Okay.
I didn't think much about it. I thought, okay, well, other than the fact that it looks like the ghetto, here's our camp, and it's just covered in underwear. And I didn't think much of it. Yeah. That night, I pulled my wool socks down off the line. And when I say it was hot, I mean it had to have been 70 degrees that day.
Warm. Yeah.
It was super warm. I mean, I got a sunburn that day. And
lightweight.
Dude, after winter time,
I know you burn pretty easy.
Not really.
I'm just giving you a hard time because I haven't burned since I was like 12.
Yeah, anyway, it was hot. Mm-hmm. Pulled my wool socks down off the line that afternoon when the sun went behind some clouds, and the gentleman walked over to his laundry area, pulled up a pair of socks, twisted them.
It rings.
And water just pours out of his socks, and he went, "What in the world?" And then he walked over to a couple of pairs of his drawers, grabbed them, twisted them. Water just comes pouring out of them, like they hadn't even hardly drip dried. It didn't seem like. And every single pair of socks and drawers that he had, cotton, was just still seemed like you just could have taken it out of the water. I mean, it wasn't dripping anymore, mm-hmm. but it was still soaking wet. That hunt went on for several more days until he killed his animal. And I kid you not, it didn't rain the rest of the time, and those drawers and socks never dried. When he left to go back to town, when his hunt was over, he stuck those things in his bag and said, I'm going to throw these away when I get back to the hotel because they're just going to mold if I fly them home. And he did. He just threw them all away, which is, no big deal. It's not like you're throwing away $45 pairs of underwear.
Yeah, my goodness. Yeah, Tighty Whities and cotton socks are cheap.
Yeah,
but
you can buy a 10-pack at Costco or Walmart. But
for cheaper than you can buy one pair of good box.
Probably. But that's kind of a comical story.
That's
about cotton clothing.
I hadn't heard that story.
Yeah, and you know, some people love the feel of cotton clothes. You know, there's a guy I know, and that you would know who he is, and he loves to hunt in a cotton hoodie. He says, "Man, I like how it feels.
I understand
it feels nice."
That.
And you and I used to hunt in cotton hoodies all the time when we were teenagers.
You know what?
And growing
and
up.
I don't know if it's actually cotton. I haven't looked at it. I still have this hoodie.
That old Under Armour one.
Yeah, you still have yours?
Yeah, I have mine.
It's finally starting to get worn out. Yep. It's the second hoodie I ever owned. It's also the most reliable, toughest hoodie I've ever owned.
Yep, we wore those Under Armour hoodies to death when we were teenagers.
Yeah.
Bear baiting, moose hunting. If it got cold, you just put your
Were
Carhartt
they cotton?
jacket.
I haven't really looked at them.
Were
they some kind of blend?
They were probably cotton and some kind of polyester blend.
Some kind of synthetic of some sort.
Because it wasn't just cotton.
You ever seen that Seinfeld episode with...
I'm not really a Seinfeld guy. Okay.
There was a Seinfeld episode. It made me think, when you told that story, it made me think of the Seinfeld episode where Kramer, if you know, you know. Mm-hmm. Kramer learns that his count isn't very good. And... his doctor tells him to stop wearing the Tighty Whities. That's probably the problem. You've wearing them so your whole life. And well, the way the episode goes is he keeps bringing them over to Jerry's apartment, saying, "Take these things from me. I keep wearing them." It's a great episode. One of my favorites, probably.
I don't think I've ever watched much of any, if any, Seinfeld.
It's an interesting show.
Maybe a couple of clips have come up.
There's definitely some, like, to me, Kramer makes the show. Yeah. There's in those kinds of episodes like that. I watched like 4 or 5 seasons of it probably.
I've been watching The Pacific. You ever seen that one?
No.
World War II show.
Okay. No, I think I've heard of it. But...
It's a good show. If you like The Pacific and World War II.
Yeah.
Okay, folks. Story time's over for the week. Well, for 2 weeks, as a matter of fact. Mm-hmm. We are going to have some good episodes here coming up with some interesting guests. Mm-hmm. That we'll just leave you hanging there. We've got some guests lined up here in the near future for the show.
I think you're going to like it a lot.
Yeah. Needless to say, we're excited to get a chance to interview them, mm-hmm. and that'll be a lot of fun. So anyway, we hope you guys are enjoying your fake spring. For those of you that are getting too excited about spring bear baiting and anything else that's going on, don't get ahead of yourself. Second winter is coming. It's probably going to get cold again. It was 5 below a couple nights ago. So
it's 10 below at my house.
We're not out of the woods yet. So grind it out for another, I don't know, month or 5 or 6 weeks.
We'll see. Sun seems to be out kind of early this year.
Man, if it comes early, then it comes early. But I will at least be surprised and happy. Yeah. If I'm expecting it to be spring in 2 weeks, then I'm going to be disappointed and mad.
And that's the thing, too, with here is if the snow might melt here, and when we're good, and we feel like we're ready to go. And then you hit the road, and you jump on the trail where I'm headed to the bear bait, and you can't get into your bear bait. Yeah.
I always get a kick out of that. April 15th, and I'm going to set up my bear baits.
I know.
Okay.
Well, used to be you.
Used to be. Yep. Used to could. All right, folks. Well, thanks for listening to the show this week. If you have any comments or questions, you can feel free to catch us on our email. You can find that on our website, on our contact button there, Great Alaska Hunting Company or podcast.com. It'll come up one way or another. Or our social media. Either go to the Great Alaska Hunting Podcast Instagram page or go to our individual Instagram pages, and you can direct message us there if you'd like to. And if you would be so inclined, we would appreciate it if you would leave us a positive rating between 1 to 5 stars. 5 is best. And a written review is nice. We've gotten a few more here lately, and we appreciate all of your support. Right now, we are not officially sponsored by anybody in a monetary format, and we are trying to keep it that way for the foreseeable future. So, again, leave us a nice written review. That is the one way that we ask for you guys to help support the show, and share it with a friend if you haven't done that already, and we thank you for listening. And once again, your last reminder, if you are interested in Great Alaska Hunting Podcast merch, then reach out to us via any one of the aforementioned contact methods.
Yeah. If you got any great ideas from the stories
Yeah.
you've heard today or over the previous episodes for a T-shirt or something that fits,
Tighty Whities on a clothesline.
Yeah, on a tent guy line even.
Yeah, next to a tent. Yeah. Yep. So we appreciate the support, guys, and we don't really have a catchy outro line.
No, music makes up for that, right?
But we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.